Welcome into the 615 Sessions podcast on this Friday, August the 30th. Thanks so much for jumping in on another episode of the show. We're happy to have you here in the Zen Sports studios and on this roster cut weekend or roster cut week. We had a surprise visit from Titans GM Ran Carthon on the radio show. You're going to get to hear that conversation with Ran on a couple of different items that they did address in the press conference and some things that they didn't have the opportunity to address in the press conference, because what we've seen from this roster is how fluid things continue to be. Now, the transactions have slowed down a little bit in the last 24 hours because, of course, teams had to get down to 53 on Tuesday. Wednesday was the first day of waiver claims. Waiver claims continue to be ongoing, but for the most part, a team who has the seventh pick in the waiver order is going to have most of that stuff wrapped up. So we're starting to we have now a more full picture of what this roster is actually going to be moving into 2024, moving into week one, which we are just slightly a week away from. We are dangerously close to the Tennessee Titans playing a regular season football game. We've, of course, got college football on Thursday night. I don't know how many of you watched the Colorado game, their win against North Dakota State. North Carolina and Minnesota, an electric finish. I think there was something like 30-something college football games on last night. Week one in college football is going to be electric. Tennessee getting back in action. And then soon, less than a week from today, the NFL will return with Derrick Henry and the Baltimore Ravens heading down to play the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champion, two-time Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs that will be out there without L'Jarius Sneed. Ravens with Derrick Henry, Chiefs without Sneed. It's going to be an interesting watch, and it means that we'll be closer to football. Trey Reed says, did I miss that Buck Rising? Welcome. No, you didn't, because this isn't primetime. This is the 615 Sessions podcast, Trey. So thank you for reminding me to clarify the difference. Normally, we have a member of Titans Media, a colleague of mine, a friend of mine from Titans Media, come on here, co-host the podcast, talk about the week that was. But this was a different kind of week for the Tennessee Titans, right? They did have days of practice. There were players that we've heard from or that we have heard from for the first time that have been recently acquired around cut day. But the emphasis was on cut day. And what we are going to do is get into Ran Carthon because he was on the radio show. And I thought about this because texted John Glennon to see if he could come on. He did a great cover story for the Nashville scene about all the transitions that the Titans have made, 75% roster turnover in the last 2.5 years since John Robinson was fired, and everything that they're up against heading into week one. So texted Glennon. Glennon couldn't make it work today. So then I thought about, well, I could hit Teron Davenport up because it's always good to talk with TD, no pun intended, because of course that's Teron's podcast. And then I got a text in the middle of the radio show. What was this yesterday? Saying, hey, Rand's available to join the radio show. Do you want him on while practice is going on? I said, sure, we'll take the Titans general manager, and you're going to hear a portion of that conversation today. For those of you who are thinking that I'm early, no, I'm not. This is the 615 Sessions podcast. It is also made possible by Zen Sports, however. Zen Sports, where betting just gets better. Plug in the promo code ATOZTN in the Zen Sports podcast, in the Zen Sports app. This is the 615 Sessions podcast. In the Zen Sports app, and get all of your favorite major sports in a great, easy-to-use, top-of-the-line betting app. Zen Sports, where betting just got better. Bet your college football, bet your Major League Baseball. We're not that far away from so many great offerings that we'll have on NFL Sundays and college football Saturdays, and we've got a huge week one slate. So Zen Sports, promo code ATOZTN in the app. Terms and conditions do apply. Gambling problem, call the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. Must be 21 plus in the state of Tennessee to bet at Zen Sports. Had to think about that for a second. Moving slow on a Friday, but it's been a long week, right? There's a lot of stuff going on. Jordan Eves says, Buck, since A to Z is going to college, doesn't that mean you're finally effing out of here? No, where would I go? What would I do? This is still a private A to Z Sports Nashville is still primarily Tennessee Titans based. So just because we're adding new sites doesn't mean that the old sites go away. And I mean, you guys know me. I would be like a fish out of water in college football. I'm too used to what it is that the NFL is at this point. Lewis Chesney says A to Z Evansville. No, I don't think we'll be covering the Purple Aces and the Screaming Eagles of USI, the University of Southern Indiana, and the U of E Purple Aces. But we will be covering teams like Ole Miss, Texas, Notre Dame, Oklahoma. I believe there's 10 different college football sites that A to Z rolled out. So for those of you who love the Vols coverage around here, you'll soon have a great many other options. But no, you guys are stuck with me around here for 2 more years at minimum, for as long as A to Z Sports decides to keep me. And quickly before we get to Ran Carthon, because that's why you guys are here. You guys are here to hear about trading Malik Willis, about trading for Ernest Jones, who's a big-time get. We broke down the Ernest Jones transaction with Greg Cosell on yesterday's episode of the Install Podcast. But before we do that, before I let you hear from Ran Carthon, because we did a 20-minute interview with him, and we're going to give you half of it so you can go check out the other half on the radio show's podcast feed. I'm going to say that I'm incredibly proud of everything that A to Z Sports is doing. Really, really cool to see how Zach and Austin have continued to grow the company with so many different kinds of pieces and parts and people who now work for this company. I always like to say this anytime they do something big, and this is a big step for them to get into college football coverage. How proud I am to see how much bigger this company has gotten since I was their first full-time employee. That's crazy. That's 5 years ago at this point. And A to Z's been at it for 8. So congratulations to everybody at the company. And hopefully you guys are going to continue to benefit from expanded coverage because you know how well A to Z does it. So anyway, Ran Carthon, Titans GM, on the radio show yesterday. I'll let you enjoy that conversation. GM Ran Carthon joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. Very kind to take some time out of his schedule. What's going on, boss man?
Not much. They not like us, huh?
Something like that.
I mean, great way to kick it in to start it.
You picking sides in the beef? What do you got?
Nah, I keep those to myself, but I was in tune.
So obviously, a lot of things going on. I hate to even have you call in because I'm sure your phone line has been red hot over the course of the last couple of weeks. But with this process for you guys, not just you, but for your staff, I wonder if you can give the audience a little bit of insight into how the delegation of labor works between you, between Anthony Robinson, Chad Brinker, his involvement, and how you guys went about this particular roster cut.
So, the way we go about it starts with our preseason scouting, which is headed by our director of pro scouting, Brian Gardner, and our assistant pro director, Kevin Turks. And those guys and their staff, they split up the league, and, we watch what we call the bottom of the roster for, every team. And, we have our guys kind of tell us who do they like, who would they recommend for our roster in, various roles, whether it's on our active, whether it's a player we'd like to try out, a guy we'd like on the practice squad. And then once we get those recommendations in, then we all go in the room. We lock ourselves in the draft room over the course of a 3-day period, which was the week leading up to the New Orleans game. And we watch every single player. Probably came out to a little over 150 guys. We watch every single player at every single position, give them I guess for lack of a better way to put it, a label, put them in a category and stack them and rank them. And when the waiver comes out, we just, we wait for those guys to come available, and then we make decisions from there. And then just in terms of the cut down, it's a continual process, between myself and, Callie and both of our staffs. And, we come to a final agreement about how we see the roster, positions where we want to go heavy or light. And that's it's questions and conversations with everybody. And, we come to a decision. So, even coming up into, the last game, after the last game, it was a couple conversations the morning of, cut down, which, we still had to work through. And, again, as you guys have seen, we've been very busy, over those couple of days. So those weren't just rush decisions, things that just popped up. Those are things that we were well aware of and well prepared for.
I mean, you have to be. You said you get an hour to submit the waivers on the waiver claim process. That's correct?
Well, once you claim someone, like when we claimed Ali Gay and Julius Wood, we had an hour to release two people to make the corresponding move. So that was the hour change. So we had to, play with some things and kind of, move some things around and to still allow us to get guys back that we want to have around here.
Well, certainly a lot of movement on the roster. In particular, a handful of trades. You guys acquire Ernest Jones from the Rams. I know he was out there and available yesterday for media to catch up with him for a little bit, and then guys on the practice field right now, if I'm not mistaken. But
yeah, literally just got off.
Okay. Well, were you out there taking in practice for a period of time? Anything you want to share?
Practice was good. It was hot.
But buddy, it's been that for 2 months. Practice was good and it's hot.
No, it was particularly hot today. I tell you that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was still playing if I could have made it through today.
It's the Middle Tennessee heat is no joke, and you guys have a lot of noon games on your schedule, so guys are going to have to get used to that in short order. But the movement on the roster, let's start with Ernest Jones. I was joking on Twitter about this the other day. Denard's just going to blitz the holy hell out of people this year, huh?
Man, look, you got two heavy dudes in there, and him and K9 that know how to get to the quarterback, from a blitzing perspective. Ernest was, that conversation, started with, myself, Les Snead, and Tony Pastors. Both of those guys, Les I worked with for 9 years, and Tony I worked with for 5 years. So, obviously we have the relationship there. And, Ernest is someone that they held in high regard, but they, found themselves at an impasse. And, they were looking for a home for him. They wanted to do right by the kid. And, we had those conversations over the course of a few days. And so that's kind of, how it ended. Again, I know there were some questions about, whether he was healthy or wanted a new contract and all those different things, so we were able to have, conversations with his representation, which I'll keep between us. But I know we're at a really good place with him. I know he's excited about the opportunity. He's a South Georgia guy. He and his wife have been together since high school. He went to South Carolina, so being here in Nashville helps him get closer to home, closer to family. He's a new father, so, I'm sure being back in this area will really help him and help free up his mind. But it was just an opportunity that we couldn't pass up to get some depth there at that inside linebacker position. So
those conversations were, because it was a pretty short window, at least from when media found out that he was going to be available via trade or potentially available via trade. So you guys were having those conversations prior to, for example, Chance Campbell's injury.
Yeah, we had those conversations then, so they were already started. And it's not like, it's so unfortunate what happened to Chance with, with the great offseason he was having. And it's not like they picked up any more, after that. So it was just a conversation that we had that we were aware of. And again, I worked with those guys for a ton of years. And so, I know how those guys operate. And, we were always open and transparent with each other about everything that was going on. And so we were put in a position where we felt comfortable making a move, so we did.
Titans general manager Ran Carthon here with us on 104.5 The Zone.
So, Ran, you said you guys got into that room a few days before the preseason finale in New Orleans. How much weight did you assign to that game against the Saints? And ultimately, what performances there on Sunday had a big impact in your decision-making this week and earned themselves a spot maybe just by what they did in that game?
Yeah, I mean, it's for everybody, it's another opportunity for us to evaluate, and you got to take it into consideration. We always go back back when they had 4 games. We would still go back and watch the 4th preseason game on some guys, because back then, guys, some guys wouldn't play until that 4th game. So it's the same thing now with 3. Some guys you may not have seen until the 3rd game, whether that's on our roster or other rosters. So we still had time to go back, and that's why we do our process the way we do it, and it gives us time to where, what we call like a scramble. If we got a scramble towards the end, a guy that's coming free that we weren't aware of, or a player that we hadn't seen through the first 2 games, we get to see him for the 3rd. We have time, and we're not like rushing ourselves. So, like I said, I commend our staff. Brian Gardner, Kevin Turks, Anthony Robinson, A.J. Highsmith, and all of our area college scouts, and even our young bucks, Kalen Reed and Keenan Agnew and Corey Cooper and Michael Johnson. Everybody took part in this process. And I think we did a really good job of being able to add to this roster.
You mentioned A.J. Highsmith and a variety of different names there, obviously, on the staff. And this is a staff that you guys had put back together or added a lot of pieces and parts to prior to this process going down. How have you liked the way that everything's flowed and the distribution of labor, essentially, with all the new people that you've put in different spots that you've brought into the organization, and also the promotions, because you guys did promote a handful of people?
Yeah, no, it's been great. I think everyone here understands their role and where they fit in. It's an open line of communication between everybody, and it's been going really, really well. It's a part of our off-season overhaul. We talk about the players, and I think I've said this a few times, like the players and the way we've improved this roster, with the players is evident, but I think it's a continuation of improving our organization as a whole. It started with the coaching staff. It started with, first Callie, being able to get him and then the staff he put together to come in, and then it rolled into the players. And then for us in personnel, most of our changes come post-May. So, being able to promote a couple guys, like Dale Thompson and, adding an A.J. Highsmith and a Sam Somerville only improved, our side on personnel, and then allowed us to, get a bunch of guys in this building that really understand the game of football, understand how to evaluate talent, to make us better.
A lot of people